The New Rulers of the World is a book written by John Pilger, the world-renowned investigative journalist and documentary filmmaker. This version, which contains an updated introduction from Pilger, reveals the secrets and illusions of modern imperialism. Pilger focuses mainly on 4 different cases of oppression and post-colonialism. The first focuses on Indonesia and General Suharto's bloody coup in the 1960s, which killed and tortured untold amounts of people and was part of a Western design to impose a global economy on Asia, in order to become the World Bank's model pupil, as Pilger calls it. Millions perished. He then moves on to America's war against the people of Iraq, not the actual invasion itself, which I think occurred shortly after this book was written, but the Gulf War, a part of Iraq-American history that is often brushed away under the carpet to make way for stale discussions that involve the uses of the phrases war on terror, democracy, terrorists, and weapons of mass destruction. Pilger reveals the true nature of America's interference with the country, and how sanctions placed upon the country, specifically in place apparently to weaken the dictators in charge of the nation, dictators that America previously trained, equipped, and funded, I might add, but instead it was the general population that bore the brunt of the sanctions, just normal men, women, and children, so many of whom died easily preventable deaths as a result of the sanctions placed upon Iraq. The third chapter is pretty much an extension of the first, only this time Pilger focuses on the Orwellian propaganda surrounding the war on terror, the wool placed firmly in the eyes of the general public. And finally, Pilger ends the book by taking a look behind the picture-postcard image of his homeland, Australia, to take a look at the still present subjugation of the first Australians, the Aborigines. The New Rulers of the World was a stunning book. I could not believe how oblivious I was to the 4 pieces covered in the novel. It was incredibly eye-opening. The Indonesian chapter I knew nothing about going in. And though there's bits and pieces of America's farce of a war on terror, more like war of terror, that I know about, the chapter on Iraq let me in on a lot that I wasn't aware of, about the extent of the West's atrocities committed. And then there's the chapter on Australia, which just completely floored me. This book details acutely and courageously how the West continues to colonize and meddle in the affairs of foreign nations, or even their own countries with Australia, with dark intentions and sinister methods. It makes a great comparison piece to John Perkins's Confessions of an Economic Hitman. The book is filled with stunning, terrifying, and revealing information, but is very personal and thus accessible. Pilger doesn't write as an academic, he writes as a human. He injects emotion, consciousness, and even sarcasm and wit into his writings, which make the scale of the inhumanity on display that much easier to comprehend. The book highlights how modern-day slavery is possible and actively happening on a mass scale, entire countries enslaved, yet without the need for chains and whips. Both this and Confessions of an Economic Hitman are incredible works, very informative, and they inject you with emotion. They inject you with a desire to take action, to spread the knowledge of what is happening in the world to those who are not informed. They blow apart the narrative of the saturated and disingenuous mainstream media that we are fed, and they make you angry and horribly upset. You gain an insight into the exploitation of the third world, and they make you think twice about what you buy and where you buy it, lest you play a major role in this exploitation. Pilger lifts the veil from international and foreign policies and shows us just how much we have been lied to by our Western leaders, and the tragic and heartless consequences that befall innocents as a result are laid out in great detail. Morality has no place where money and power are concerned, as Pilger shows us, and the novel shakes you to your very core. There's very few better evidences of why not to listen to the BBC, Sky News, or any of the American news outlets than this book, which should be obvious enough, but the New Rulers of the World tells us the agendas that these outlets have and the propaganda they peddle. And not to mention the book is sourced in great detail and fact-checked, so the standard template response of, "Oh, it's all just a big conspiracy theory," doesn't fly here. You grow up thinking naively that you were in a nice part of the world. You were in a progressive place where countries are trying to help make the world a better place. And then books like this one come along and slap the reality hard into your face. If you live in the UK, the US, France, Australia, or any other first world nation, you honestly believe that your nation is the good guy trying to do what's right, you need to get yourself a copy of this book. And it matters not whether you follow and support conservatives or liberals. These are small things, minuscule distractions in the grand scheme of things. A magnificent work, The New Rulers of the World tears apart the hypocrisy and disinformation our beloved democracies dish out and turns a spotlight to inconvenient truths and consequences that the news you watch and read turns a blind eye to. Everyone should read this book.